I grabbed a 9-inch hollow craft pumpkin, drew a large arch with 2 smaller ones on either side, and I cut them out with a sharp knife. I glued the pumpkin to a board, then I applied hot glue to the edge of the arch and filled it with fake moss. I also lined the large arch or door with a cute vine from the dollar store. I had some pieces of birch bark and I cut those and used them for shutters on the either sides of the windows. Then I added moss all around the pumpkin. I made a ladder for the side window out of twigs, and I added acorns, pine cones, lots of different faux mosses. I added mushrooms, a gnome, a fairy, and rocks for the front walkway.
The very first thing I do is pick up my artificial pumpkin and I paint them. I need to draw a face on it, and now I am going to use my Versatool, which is like a hot knife, to go ahead and cut out my shapes. I'm going to add the black paint. So this is all the pumpkins that I have done. We're going to take each one of the jack-o'-lanterns and drill a hole at the top and the bottom. After they're drilled on, we just slide each jack-o'-lantern right up the pole. And then we take another piece of the pool noodle and we slide that right over the PVC. So I have fired up the glue gun. We are going to take these leaves that we are just going to cover these. We just slide the smaller PVC pole into the bigger one, and voila! Now I have finished the cross piece, and my dear husband is going to climb up and put it up there. The piece of PVC just slides right into that elbow. You cut the hole in the bottom and you feed the lights through, and then you cut the hole in the top and then you pull the lights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stuff some plastic shopping bags down inside. I have gotten some Spanish moss that I'm going to drape out here.
I have one of those foam crafting pumpkins, and I want to make a hole in the top of this one and also in the bottom. Smaller pumpkin, and I'm going to cut a hole in the bottom. I have my drill and I have a longer drill bit on it, and I'm gonna just drill some holes around each of the pumpkins. And I'm just taking a small amount of brown paint and I'm just following the ridges of the pumpkin. I'm taking a small string of Christmas lights. I'm gonna pop some in there, and then I'm just gonna put the whole thing into the top of the middle pumpkin and run it out the bottom. Now I'm gonna glue the pumpkins together. And now I'm gonna add a stem. I cut some bittersweet vine from my backyard, and I'm just gonna wrap it around the sections of the pumpkins.
Pick up a couple of carvable fake pumpkins. I'm using a pumpkin carving tool. I'm starting by printing out my address in big bold numbers, and then I'm going to trace them onto the pumpkins. With all the numbers and everything cut out, it's time to start assembling. I'm going to take my fairy lights and just place them inside of each pumpkin with a battery pack hanging out. Then I can stack them on top of one another. Once I know I have everything exactly how I want it, I'm going to use a little hot glue just to secure the pumpkins to one another. Now I can add a little bit of fall decoration. I've got some faux leaves here, and then I'm gonna place the pumpkin topiary on top.
Grab some small white pumpkins and 2 hanging baskets from your local dollar store. Flip one of the baskets upside down and connect the 2 baskets together by zip tying the middle. Take a eucalyptus garland and twist the wire end around one of the spokes of the wire globe. Start to wrap the garland. Take your time and move the leaves through the spaces as you wrap the garland. Twist, move, and arrange the leaves so they face outward. Take some battery-operated fairy lights and nestle the battery pack into the bottom of the globe. Begin to wrap the fairy lights over and around the bottom half of the basket globe. Wrap over the top. Next, fill in the center of the garland-wrapped globe with a generous amount of Spanish moss. Remember those white dollar store pumpkins? Give them a very light dusting of spray paint. Tuck them into the basket globe and nestle them into the Spanish moss. Hang your new pumpkin globe on a porch or from a tree branch.
What
we want to do is take our foam pumpkins and we're going to remove these stems. Just push them down until you have them pretty flat. So we've got our 2 plates, our 2 pumpkins, and we're going to use epoxy. So I'm going to put a nice generous portion on the bottom of my plate here, and I'm going to take my pumpkin and just stick it to the bottom of my plate. And then all you need to do is leave it and let that epoxy dry. Now that I've let my 2 sides sit for just a minute so that the epoxy starts to dry, and I want to again put a nice generous portion of the epoxy and mix it up to each side of the pumpkin here. And then I'm going to attach my 2 sides together. So I'm going to start with this beautiful bronze paint. Now I want to take a little bit of gold and I'm going to just lighten this up a bit and give it some highlights.
I spotted these styrofoam pumpkins. So I'm gonna come in with some Krylon primer spray paint and I'm gonna give these a very light coat. And then I took them back inside and I took some acrylic paint to cover these pumpkins. I next came in with this pickling white wax from Dixie Belle, just in the indent lines. I also went over with a darker orange in the indent lines on some of the pumpkins. I'm gonna take this dowel and I'm gonna poke it down through the pumpkin. Then I'm just gonna begin poking on my other pumpkins as well. Then I'm going to take this rustic bucket, I'm going to weigh it down with a rock, put some paper in, and then I'm going to push a styrofoam ball in there, and I'm going to push the end of the dowel into the styrofoam ball. I'm going to shove in some of this natural looking grass here, and then I'm also going to paint some of the stems of the pumpkins and stick them back in, and I'm going to decorate the tops of the pumpkins as well. I also made a little sign here for the top.
Stencil my design onto this middle bit of the napkin. Got a really nice dark green here. Okay, that should be enough. Now this is dry and I've cut it into 4 bits. Using an artist's brush and some water, I'm going to paint around a section of leaves because I want to pull this part out. Any glue that you've got, and then taking one of my pieces that I've cut out and put it onto my pumpkin like that and smooth it down. And because it's got a white background, it just blends into the pumpkin. So I'm taking the same gel medium that I used before, and then I'm going to take some gold leaf and using a very soft brush, pat it down.
We're going to grab 4 pumpkins and we're going to pull off the little stems. We're going to take the small one, put it on top, and grab a taper candle. The taper candle is going to be the guide to make a hole. Then you're going to take an X-Acto knife and you're going to take out the area that you just drew. And see, it fits perfectly. So put a big blob of glue and put your little pumpkin on top. So we're going to grab 2 little wooden rings, put that at the bottom, and now they are totally stable. So now we want to take some faux branches and make this really festive. You're going to grab your hot glue and put a little dot of glue in between the 2 pumpkins and start adding in your pieces of the branches. And these are just some mini pine cones, and we're just going to hot glue those in a couple areas on our candle holder.